And so I'm going to give Jerry the honor of introducing his speaker this evening. Jerry Mungai.
Can you hear me? Well, I'm glad we have a permit for the Tea Party Patriots meeting on April the 15th, because that money will help fund the unfunded liability of the dedicated civil servants that work for the city of San Jose. Hardworking. Tonight's speaker doesn't really need an introduction. In fact, I'd like to know how many here tonight have not ever heard of Brian Sussman. That's what I thought. He's a great voice in the Bay Area for individual freedom and with responsibility, but also nationally when he substitutes for the great one, Mark Levin. We all know about his morning show, but perhaps some of us are not aware of the tremendous volunteer work he does in assisting for the adoption of foster children. Between 1989 and 2001, 400 foster children were placed into permanent families thanks to his organization, Brian's Kids. Brian is also an adopted parent. He's also a tireless anti-global warming fighter. His first book, Climategate, was very successful. That fortuitously came out about the time of the East Anglia University data falsification story broke. And he's still waiting for the global warming Pope, Al Gore, to accept his challenge for a global warming debate. But Gore, having made millions on the global warming scam that allows him to fly around the world in his private jets and divide his free time amongst his 6 palatial mansions, I don't think he'll be accepting Brian's challenge anytime soon. Tonight, Brian's going to talk about eco-terrorism. And you gotta love the title. Drill it, log it, and damn it. Beautiful title. Please join me in welcoming a great American, Brian Sussman.
Nobody knew about this birthday. How did you guys find it? No, seriously, how did you find it?
I don't know. I just
And Jerry just said, oh, Nancy Pelosi told me. Yeah, like I like that. Yeah. And she's probably looking not for my birth date, she's looking for my date of death.
Blame it on Melanie.
Okay, how's the volume? How's the volume? Okay, the volume's loud? Okay, loud. Okay, well, those over 75 are saying, not loud enough. Okay, so we'll work on this. Now, you know me, I like to walk around, so... And by the way, is this a birthday gift? This is a noose. What is this? This is a noose. Yeah, that's... So, yeah. So what the comment from the peanut gallery was, in case you're bombing, okay, tonight, we'll just... Okay, good, very good, very good, very good, very good. No charge, no charge. Thank you. You're a wonderful patriot. Thank you. Okay, so I love, the first time I was here, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I was so excited when it really just happened to work out. The book, Eco-Tyranny, is released April 17th. We'll have details on the national release. And last time around we were fortunate enough to release it on Hannity's show. That could well happen again this time. So it's the 17th. You can't buy this in the stores until the 17th. You can't even download it on a Kindle or a Nook or whatever until the 17th. So this is a special night. We have an opportunity for you to receive the book. We're right over there afterward, signing, and just, this is a special time. Because this is home, okay? This is, you are my radio family. And I wanted to have this opportunity to share the night with you, so thank you. I have not talked talking all about the book in specifics. I've mentioned the book a lot on the radio, but I'm under an order from the publisher to not say anything on the air because the idea is, just a little inside baseball, to get on Hannity's show, he wants exclusive rights to the first word about the book. So the deal is, okay, I can play that game. I get to go on Hannity's radio and TV show, I can play that game. I'm not going to say anything about the book on the air. But behind closed doors, this is the first time to talk about the book. So I'm really excited about this. This book, by the way, now, I saw something on TV recently, they were talking about collector's items, collector's books. Now, I don't know if this will be a collector's item someday. You know, if the left has their way, this book will vanish quickly. Because this is the book Barack Obama, Al Gore, Nancy Pelosi, Greenpeace, Wilderness Society, National Resources Defense Council, they do not want you to read this book because I expose the whole dadgum plan start to finish. I expose the red roots of the green movement, and I show you how the branches of this movement have reached into every aspect of American life. And folks, if we want to save this country, we have got to cut that monster down, period. In this deal, they talk about, collector's items. And they say, what you really want with a book, if it's a collectible book, you want the first edition. Okay, you want the first edition. But no, you go beyond that. You want the first printing. Now, how do you know if you have the first printing of any book? You know it by the mistakes. Now, I can tell you, in the forward alone, there are four mistakes in the forward. I haven't found any others in the entire book. Those will get cleared up. Well, they've already been cleared up because we've already gone into a second printing of the book. So those have been cleared up. But you have the first printing. And you may find those four printing errors. And there's one that's some of them are so subtle you don't even catch them. But anyway, I mentioned that this is a collector's item. The way all this started, my wife and I, as long as I've been in the media, and I've been in the media a long time, as long as I've been in the media, and by the way, most people don't realize this, I started as a journalist running a TV newsroom. I was a TV news director running a TV news operation at the age of 21. I really had no idea what I was doing. I wanted to be a TV weatherman someday, but here I am running a newsroom. And I can't say that I ran it into the ground, but I can't say I did get fired after about a year and a half. And that's when I was finally able to get into television weather, which was always my dream. But as long as I've been doing this, my wife would hear me come home from work with these jaw-dropping statistics, these facts, little factoids I used to call them. And I would tell her, "You wouldn't believe what the president said today," and she'd say, "No way." "You wouldn't believe what the UN did today," and she would say, "No way." And I just had this collection of no ways that came out throughout the course of time. And so one day she finally said, "You've got to write a book, and you need to call it No Way." And I thought, that's a great idea. So I started writing all the no ways down and put them into a book form, and I gave them to a friend of mine who's written about 30 books. And this particular gentleman who used to write for President Reagan, write speeches for President Reagan, Lee is his name, Lee looked at my book called No Way, and he said, "Brian, no way." He said, "This is not going to work. You got to wrap this around a theme. Now, you really like the environment. You need to come up with a book wrapped around the environment." So I did. We called it Global Whining. Global Whining. And the publisher said, "Well, catchy title," and he read the book and he said, "No way. I've got a better one. Let's call it Climategate. And why don't you talk about those emails that were just leaked?" And we got ourselves a deal. So that was the first book. It became a bestseller. So as I'm writing the first book, there was something that I kept noticing. The first book was exposing the global warming scam, kind of the history of the global warming scam. I'm writing this basically as a journalist who knows a lot about weather. So, global warming scam. But as I'm writing this book, I'm thinking, there's a bigger scam here. And the bigger scam is, it's the environmental movement. The whole thing is a scam. It's not about, as it says on the back of the book, it isn't about the environment. Let's be clear about that. This is about changing the way we live. This is about instituting a type of government that the founders never dreamed of. It's called socialism. It's called communism. Maybe even utopianism, but it's not life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so I started researching this book, and I was just amazed. In fact, I'm just going to read you something from the book here. This is page 9. Okay, I'm not going to say, those of you who are following along, okay? Actually, not page 9. Let's go back. So I don't even know where things are in my own book. Okay, so this is, oh, I apologize. Hold on, gotta find this. I will shortly, but I can't find it right now. Okay, so the bottom line is, the first guy, this is a bummer. I thought I had the wrong quote. I thought it was chapter, okay. The bottom line is this. What a way to start the speech. This is the speech that I'm going to be taking on the road. Hold on, I've got to find this. This is shocking. You need to hear this. Hold on. No way, I'm hearing it already. That's great, thank you. So you're going to use this next. I can feel it coming. Great. Okay. You have got to hear this. It's the first, okay, it's the first person to write extensively about mankind's pollution causing climate change, and in this particular case, it was global cooling. The first person to write about this was Frederick Engels, Karl Marx's writing partner. I'm scouring through, I came upon this and I was like, what? I was just reading tons of Marx, trying to put this book together. I'm reading stuff. I'm afraid my brain's going to turn red and start dripping on my ears. And I come across this quote, and it's in the book. Aha.
What's in the index?
Page 31. But inexorably, the time will come when the declining warmth of the sun will no longer suffice to melt the ice, thrusting itself forward from the poles, when the human race, crowding more and more about the equator, will finally no longer find even there enough heat for life, when gradually even the last trace of organic life will vanish, and the Earth, an extinct, frozen globe like the moon, will circle in deepest darkness and in an ever narrow orbit about the equally extinct sun, and at last fall into it. That's Frederick Engels. Mankind's pollution, he believed, and Marx believed, would cause climate change. They were toting this line back in the 1860s because they realized very early on that pollution, nobody likes pollution. No, everyone wants clean air and everyone wants clean water. They blame pollution on capitalism and free enterprise. And they were all about crushing capitalism and free enterprise. So they thought, if we can get into the minds of people that pollution, real or imagined, is causing some kind of environmental crisis, we can use that to crush capitalism. And look what's happening today, folks. I mean, we got this stupid high-speed rail that Jerry Brown just continues to wonder, the high-speed choo-choo train to nowhere. We all know the price tag on this is about $200 billion, but yesterday he comes out, no, I've got it solved, it's going to be $68 billion, $68 billion. How are you going to do that, Jerry? We're going to use the money from cap and trade, which starts in November. We're going to take those fees and we're going to put it towards high-speed rail. Now, what's the point of that? High-speed rail is nothing but a big jobs program. That's all it is for right now. It's just a big jobs program. So you're going to tax the corporations and take that money to put union guys to work. It's a transfer of wealth. It's a redistribution of wealth. This is exactly the way Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels saw it. They said, if we can do something like that through pollution, we've got it dialed. I mentioned in the book, The First Environmental Crisis. This is wild. Friedrich Engels had a buddy named Justus von Liebig. And Justus von Liebig, a highfalutin biologist, he was a highfalutin academic like Marx. He saw the world through Marx's lens. They were good friends, and he was a communist in the making. Justus von Liebig said the first environmental crisis was the guano trade. That would be bird poop. Bird poop. Because the farmers in the UK were using the bird poop to fertilize the crops. And by the way, bird poop, perfectly organic, but they were using it on the crops. Crops were growing like crazy, higher yields. That means the people had more food to eat. Because they had more food to eat, now they were living longer lives, having more kids, desiring larger houses, and along with that, they needed more cattle to eat. And the cattle were able to eat quite well because the crops were quite available. And they needed more horses to run around because there were no cars then. And von Liebig hated all that because he said several things were happening. First of all, this guano was coming from all over the planet. He said, you're taking that guano from other countries, enslaving these people, making them work to get the guano, then you're putting it on ships and you're bringing it to England and you're spreading it on the crops. And then the people are living longer, and the people are more healthy, and they're having bigger families, and they're having bigger houses. And when they have bigger houses, we're cutting down more trees for the houses. And now we've got more horses, and there's more horse poop, and there's more human poop, and there's more bird poop. And this is polluting the planet. This is what he actually believed. And Karl Marx said, this is brilliant. I like this. We've got poop problems. And it's all because of guano. Now, see, as a capitalist, I'm thinking, this is brilliant. Okay, the farmers are making more money than ever, right? They're selling their product to people who want to buy it at a better cost because the supply is up, the costs are down. People are having more kids, they're having bigger houses. Now all the laborers who are building houses have more jobs. There are ships going back and forth across the planet picking up guano. People in countries where they would not otherwise have a job now have a job picking up guano. Not the best job in the world, but at least it's a job. I see it as a market opportunity. Karl Marx saw it as evil. That was the first environmental crisis. And they've been running with this ball ever since. I also talk a lot in the book about some of the connections from Karl Marx to the present day environmental movement. I don't know that anybody's ever read about this before. Again, as I'm reading all this Marx stuff, I'm finding this. Let me just connect a few dots for you. Just a few degrees of separation. Now, everybody here has probably heard of Rachel Carson. The Department of Interior says she's the mother of the environmental movement. She wrote the book Silent Spring. And you can find Silent Spring in any bookstore to this day. It sells like hotcakes, even though she's been dead for decades. First of all, we had a guy named Ray Lancaster. Ray Lancaster is a friend of Marx, a disciple of Marx, a mentee of Marx. Ray Lancaster was also a biologist who believed pollution could be used to hammer capitalism. Ray Lancaster said, humans are the insurgent son of man. Humans, the insurgent son of man. He believed humans were destroying the planet through their pollution. So that's Ray Lancaster, best friend of Karl Marx. Lancaster's star pupil is a guy named Arthur Tainsley. Arthur Tainsley also believed that pollution was ruining the world and it was all mankind's fault, and it could be used to hammer capitalism. He coined a new term, Tainsley did, ecosystem. This was a communist came up with the term ecosystem. And ecosystems are in the eye of the beholder. An ecosystem can be as big as a puddle, or it can be as large as an ocean. Small as a puddle, large as an ocean. You take your pick. And of course, the EPA loves to play this little trick. Well, we've got to save this ecosystem. I mean, look at the species in this ecosystem. The ecosystem in Half Moon Bay can be a puddle in your backyard, and you're no longer allowed to mow your backyard. An ecosystem could be the Pacific Ocean or the Monterey Bay that we have to protect, and all the fishermen now are kept out of it. That's an ecosystem. This guy wrote about the destructive human activities of the modern world. So we've got Marx, Lancaster, Arthur Tainsley, and then Arthur Tainsley had a protege named Charles Elton. Charles Elton said that mankind was producing an astonishing rain of death upon the Earth's surface. Now it's interesting because that very line is found in Rachel Carson's book. She loved Elton so much, she used his lines. We just have a few separations between Rachel and Karl Marx. This is a guy who also wrote, he wondered if humans were a part of nature or not. Something else that Rachel Carson did. She quoted in her book constantly a guy named H.J. Muller, Nobel Prize winner, but also in the 1930s at the University of Texas, he was head of the National Student Association, which was a communist organization, a well-known communist organization. He even had a student newspaper that he oversaw called the IXRA. IXRA meant spark. Spark was something that Lenin called his newspaper. And Lenin basically was the biggest environmentalist of all time. He saw what Marx was doing with the environmental movement in terms of his writings, and Lenin said, I want to implement this countrywide. So what Lenin did was he took great swaths of land in Russia. I mean, he was only the leader of Russia for a short period of time, but the place was just wasted, absolutely impoverished. And he said, no, the forests are off limits. You cannot take lumber out of the forests. The forests are the forests. The natural resources, there are lots of coal in these mountains. We're not touching the coal. Oil, we're not going to touch that either. In fact, no one can go into these nature preserves. He was the guy who invented the nature preserve, Lenin. He said the people got to keep out. When you look at some of the writings, and I talk about them in the book, some of the things that Lenin was saying based on the writings of Marx, some of the things Lenin was saying and implementing in his country are exactly what we're doing in this country through the Department of Interior. It's frightening. It's as if some brainiac said, wow, that Lenin, he really had a good idea. Let's do it all. Well, guess what, folks? We are doing it all. Something else I talk about in the book is a gentleman named Al Gore. I really have fun with his Gorebasms. I mean, really, this guy, he's cussing up a storm these days. He seems angrier than ever. I think it all goes back to the election of 2000 for starters, right? Because you can listen, and I do, you flip around and listen to liberal radio. If you just want to watch liberal television, go to MSNBC on any given night. There's not one 24-hour period on MSNBC where they don't talk about Bush v. Gore. They always talk about the Supreme Court decision where Al Gore lost to Bush. They forget, of course, there were independent vote counts, like many, that prove that indeed Bush did win the election out of Florida, but they always go back to Bush v. Gore. I'm sure that Al Gore is stuck in that Supreme Court decision as well. He can't stand it. And he also can't stand something. The cap-and-trade bill never passed. One of the reasons why I wrote Climategate was to try to stop the cap-and-trade bill that Nancy Pelosi wanted to push through when she had the majority in Congress. It did not pass because there were enough Democrats who woke up and smelled the coffee and said, we ain't going down this road, we'll never get reelected again. We didn't pass it. Al Gore was so invested in cap-and-trade, he was going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. When that pipeline was cut off, he was ticked off. He was having Gorebasms, cussing fool. And then, of course, he had the divorce to his wife, Tipper. And I say, congratulations, Tipper. It's a big weight off your shoulders. Sorry it took so long. Sorry I had to... But, I mean, Al Gore is really out of his mind at this point in time. And Al Gore is totally invested in the green movement. Here in the Silicon Valley, I mean, he's made probably a couple $100 million off of green. For Al Gore, there has to be global warming. Otherwise, there's not going to be investment in solar and wind and bio, etc. There has to be global warming. But there's a real big problem. And that is, there's been no global warming since 1994. Now, I don't care what you hear and where you hear it, but the facts are the facts. There has been no global warming since 1994. Some people say, well, 1998, one of the hottest years on record. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. That was an El Nino year. Let's throw that out. It's an anomaly. There's been no global warming now for some 17 years. None. Can't find any. In fact, over the last 2 years, the temperatures have been cooling. So Al Gore's really having a tough time. And I contend, I love my website, debatemealgore.com, okay? It's the website Al Gore does not want you to read. Al Gore won't debate me, but you know one guy who did recently was Alec Baldwin, the actor. Did you hear about this? Oh, this is a good one. So I use Twitter. And Brian_Sussman is my Twitter handle. And Alec Baldwin is Alec Baldwin. So Alec Baldwin had gone after a friend of mine, Senator Jim Inhofe. Now, Jim Inhofe wrote the cover endorsement for the book. Eco-Tyranny provides a thought-provoking analysis of the origins of the modern-day sustainable movement. So he wrote the endorsement for my book. Really appreciate it for that. This is a guy who in committee sits next to Barbara Boxer every day and has to face off against her. Okay? So this is a good guy. Okay? He deserves some kind of badge of honor for going up against this woman on a regular basis. So Alec Baldwin called my friend Jim Inhofe an oil whore. An oil whore. You know, because he's always standing up against the global warming, so therefore he's an oil whore. So I got on Twitter, and I said, well, and this was all directed to Alec Baldwin, if Jim Inhofe is an oil whore, then Alec Baldwin is an eco-slut. Not bad, huh? He's writing it down, he likes that. If Jim Inhofe, said my next tweet, if Jim Inhofe is an oil whore, then Alec Baldwin is an enviro hooker. I thought, this is kind of fun, let's just keep going. If Jim Inhofe is an oil whore, then Alec Baldwin is a green strumpet. A strumpet would be a professional woman who likes to work nights. Then I go on to say, Alec Baldwin is an actor who can only debate his eco-views with aid of a script. Well, he's an actor. That's pretty good. Next one, Alec Baldwin is a hypocrite. How large is his personal carbon footprint? Next one, Alec Baldwin pollutes society with his leftist rhetoric. Next week, let's debate the green issues, Alec Baldwin. I'll even let you bring your hypocrite friend, Robert Kennedy Jr. to the debate. Now, Robert Kennedy Jr., of course, nephew of the former president. Robert Kennedy Jr., probably the most high-profile eco-attorney in the United States of America. And by the way, big hypocrite. He lives out there in Massachusetts, Martha's Vineyard, and he's the guy that personally stopped all the wind turbines from going in next to his house. The big green lawyer didn't want the wind turbines. So, suddenly, I noticed that I had been blocked as a follower of Alec Baldwin. And I thought, okay, this guy has 1 million followers. And somebody took the time to read this, and now they blocked me? Are you kidding me? This is amazing. No one gets blocked on Twitter. And so then I tweet, my, look who just deleted me as a follower, Alec Baldwin. And then, you know, it all just broke loose on the internet at this point, because people are watching this exchange, and some of his followers are saying, Alec, why would you block anybody? I mean, this is just some guy who wrote a book. You're an actor, you're rich, who's he? You know, all of this stuff. So now I say, what's going to happen next? Alec Baldwin responds to me. I mean, 1 million followers, he's an actor, he does commercials, he has TV shows, he does all this, and he's responding to me. I'm thinking, this guy is so self-absorbed that he's reading all this stuff? I couldn't believe it. And he says, and it was actually pretty funny, he says, Brian Sussman, I think Bobby Kennedy would tie you up in a ball, dribble you on the ground, and shoot you into an oil well. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was real good, but mine was even better. Not before I would shred Robert Kennedy Jr.'s rhetoric like a raptor flying through the blades of a wind turbine. So now, you know, people are getting involved in this, it's going back and forth, and the rhetoric is just really getting crazy from other people. And they're, wow, Alec, debate this guy. Alec, keep him as a follower at least. And finally, Alec Baldwin says, I'm keeping the right-wingers who challenge me, entertain me, and inform me. Others get blocked because they bore me, like Brian Sussman.